8 ways SJWs proved they were unfit to lead. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and after making a video about the regressive left contributing to Trump's rise to power, I figured it would be a good idea to go on a bit further in terms of examining why this happened. I almost theorize that the past 4 years of American sociopolitics was a gigantic cultural experiment to see what would happen if the historic have-nots maybe magically ended up in charge. You see, while I was a Sanders supporter and still ultimately wish he ended up our president, I want to make it abundantly clear that I perfectly well understand why people were skeptical of the regressive left leading in any arena, and therefore they were skeptical of the left entirely. I'm completely convinced that Hillary Clinton ended up the queen of the regressive left in America, but it's not that everybody in her queendom necessarily even liked her or agreed with her on every issue. Still, as you can note in my video entitled Why Fourth Wave Feminism is Hillary Clinton Feminism, I really do think that the core tenets and wide reach of the fourth wave intersectional feminist social justice warrior ideology traces back to her, as she was the prime beneficiary of this ideology. An ideology which failed, and for good reason. Let's begin. The first way we know that these people were unfit to lead was that they needed so much censorship to win. And even after censoring everybody with the wrong opinion on Facebook, Twitter, and even on YouTube on some occasions, they still ended up losing. I've heard Thunderfoot say this before, but I'm not sure he came up with the quote. History has shown that the ideas that needed censorship to protect them were generally really bad ideas. Or maybe they always were. I think that says all that I really need to say. The second way we know that the people who followed fourth wave intersectional feminist social justice ideology were not fit to lead is that they immediately showed us that they were far more vengeful with their bigotry than anybody else. I mean, white men have done a few mess up things in the past, sure, but while white men were still in most positions of power, and still are, they did abolish slavery, segregation, and it's even not cool in most circles if white people are blatantly racist. Well, over the past 4 years or so, many black people, feminists, trans people, and every other type of minority basically demanded that white men shut up and listen constantly. Once we were listening, they made it abundantly clear that they absolutely did not plan to return any of those courtesies if they were put in charge of anything. No, they would be nasty and vengeful towards white men at every given opportunity and demand that we thank them for it. Sorry, no thanks. The third way we know that these people should never lead was simply how self-centered feminists really are. I mean, these are people that say, the future is female, as if the future has a gender. If you tell them that men commit suicide more than women, they'll say it doesn't matter because women supposedly attempt suicide more. If you tell them that men are the vast majority of victims of violent crime, especially murder, they'll say that it doesn't matter because those crimes were mostly committed by men. As if the innocent victims of violent crime that are men don't matter based on the gender of the perpetrator. This isn't just individual bad apple type women who say these types of things. Clinton herself said that women are always the primary victims of war, for example, because, well, somehow feminists can always find a way to say, but what about the women's? Every time. It doesn't matter that men are left to bleed out slowly on the battlefield, that they come home without limbs, that they are tortured to death. No, women still have it worse somehow. The last thing that we should do is put somebody who thinks like that in charge of anything. The fourth way we know that these people shouldn't be in charge is that they hate their own country more than foreign threats that they largely know nothing about. Except Russia, of course. Russia is bad. Probably because they are white? Time and time again, they blame white men and colonialism on all of the problems in the entire world, and we see them make every excuse they can for the problems within Islam. But do they know anything about Islam? Considering how much they will excuse the inherent problems within the religion, we can assume that they just aren't educated at all. But when something bad happens to Hillary Clinton, remember to blame those awful lily-white Russian hackers. The fifth reason we know they suck at leading is that they don't actually even help the people they claim to stick up for. As a gay man, I find it infuriating how they are so concerned with Donald Trump's cabinet being anti-gay or whatever all of a sudden, when up until he won, they were obsessed with attacking gay men at every opportunity they could and calling us misogynists and saying we're racist for what we have on our hookup profiles and stuff. Women are shamed for wanting self-defense classes and said that that's victim blaming and that instead we should teach men not to rape. Black Lives Matter didn't help the floods in Louisiana until super late, and when they got there, I don't think they actually really did anything, and they just, marched around because that's all Black Lives Matter really does, and apparently they were booed because the average black citizen probably knows the drill all too well by now. Like all these activist groups that supposedly speak for the black community, they really just want attention for themselves and their cause because they're queer activists. It seems a lot more important to fourth wave intersectional feminist SJWs to speak for minority groups than it does to be that they actually want to help them. Reason number 6 that we know these people shouldn't be in charge of anything is simply that they never made a compelling case for it. They basically just said that minority groups should have an opportunity to lead because white men have screwed everything up historically, according to them. Pardon me, but criticizing a leader doesn't make you qualified to lead, no matter how compelling your criticism sounds. You wouldn't go on an airplane and tell the captain to let you fly, stating that you deserve a chance because nobody has ever let you fly a plane full of passengers before. So, just give you a shot. The same should apply to other instances. You don't deserve the right to speak first at every opportunity simply because you feel people who look like you haven't had enough chances to talk. Sorry, but from here on out, you're gonna have to convince us that you actually have something interesting to say. The 7th way we know that they shouldn't lead is that they are obsessed with showing everybody how weak they are. Leaders should probably be strong. They shouldn't need safe spaces, trigger warnings, or wanting to proudly proclaim to the world how big of victims they are. So why is it that these very people are the ones who ended up dominating discourse over the past 4 years? Why were the biggest whiners able to take over universities, hold the queer community hostage, and are even given preferential treatment on social media? Well, I don't know why either. And now they've failed in their mission. The 8th and final reason we know that these people shouldn't lead is that they don't know anything about economics. Now granted, I don't know a whole lot about economics, and it's to my shame that I only really figured out in the past few months why tax breaks for American corporations might actually be a good thing in some ways, as it will give them a competitive edge compared to, say, Asian corporations that generally have higher corporate tax rates. Regardless, economics is an incredibly hard thing to learn about, and basically, as soon as you know anything about it, you'll be overconfident about how much you know, and then in 5 years, you'll need a long refresher course in all of it because it changes very deliberately. Because rich people like to confuse poorer people with complicated systems of banking and investing, so that nobody knows why the rich are so rich. Economics is at least something important to know about for leaders, and SJWs and feminists basically have no clue about how it works. Hell, they only figured out the internet this decade, so they aren't always on the ball. I'm not exactly happy Trump won, but I'm happy that these people lost. Drop me a comment and stay tuned.